Time to check in with Dr. Joe Schwarz, host of the Dr. Joe Show, here, of course, on CJAD every Sunday at 3 o'clock. He's also director of the McGill Office for Science and Society. Joe, I'm sorry, but I'm looking at the at the first headline, which asks the question, why is there laughing gas in whipped cream? Help me. I didn't even, did everyone know this? I'd never heard this before.
All right. Well, from now on, everyone will know it, right? That's why we're here. Okay. Well, there are a couple of ways of making whipped cream. If you want to add a little bit of delight to a sundae or to a pastry, you can get some heavy cream and do some exercise and use a whisk and whip it up. Or you can get one of the canisters of whipped cream, the aerosol version, and you just press the little trigger at the top, and out gushes the whipped cream. Well, why does it gush out? Because there's a propellant in there that pushes it out. And that propellant is a gas called nitrous oxide.
No, it's not.
Which is also known as laughing gas. And that dates back to the early 1800s when chemist Humphrey Davy, one of the most elite chemists at the time, discovered nitrous oxide and discovered that indeed it had some delight-giving effects. Quote, he said, "This gas raised my pulse upwards of 20 strokes, made me dance about the laboratory as a madman, and it's kept my spirits in a glow ever since." And that precipitated what came to be called laughing gas parties, where people would inhale the gas and prance around. Well, today, that same gas, nitrous oxide, has a multitude of uses, including in whipped cream. You can pressurize the gas, change it to a liquid. It's inserted into the canister together with the cream, and when you open it to the atmosphere at the top by pushing the little button or the trigger, the nitrous oxide turns into a vapor, and it converts the cream into a foam that is full of bubbles. That's what a foam is. And it just gushes out. And it gives you very voluminous whipped cream, mountains of whipped cream, bigger than what you can make by just whisking it by hand.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the interesting thing about nitrous oxide is the other uses that it has. It was one of the first anesthetics that was ever used because it sedates you and it can take away pain. And dentists gravitated to use in the
exactly.
1800s.
So, nitrous oxide has been used by dentists forever, right? Some people actually prefer that to having to get an injection.
Absolutely. And it is also used in some cases of surgery. So it has an established record as a medicinal product. It has a couple of other interesting uses as well. In drag racing, those cars that take off and go from 0 to 100 in half a second or whatever, eventually have to be stopped by parachutes. They have nitrous oxide mixed in with their fuel because the nitrous oxide releases oxygen, and that enhances the combustion of the fuel. It's even used in some rocket engines for exactly the same reason. Now, there is some concern about nitrous oxide because it is a greenhouse gas. And more than that, it is also capable of destroying the ozone layer. So it gets into the atmosphere. And of course, today we are worried about greenhouse gases. Now, it is a small part. It's only about 6% of all the greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide, of course, is the most. It's about 80%. Methane is about 10%. And those prevent heat from being lost from the earth. They kind of seal in the heat. And that's the reason that we're seeing the increased temperatures and global warming. So nitrous oxide does play a role in that. Now, I wouldn't worry about the nitrous oxide causing global change from whipped cream because there's not enough whipped cream canisters being produced in the world to make a difference. There we're talking about a flea on an elephant, where the elephant is the other uses of nitrous oxide or the other emanations, and that is mostly from fertilizer. And fertilizer, of course, has made hunger much, much less of a problem in the world. But fertilizer is ammonium nitrate mostly. And when that is spread on the ground, bacteria can break it down, and that causes the release of nitrous oxide. So the vast majority of the nitrous oxide that ends up in our atmosphere comes from the use of fertilizer. But of course, we don't want to get away from using fertilizer because it makes food much more widely available. And incidentally, this is also the story for natural fertilizer, which is animal manure. That also is broken down by bacteria and releases nitrous oxide. But again, the amounts of nitrous oxide released into the atmosphere from those sources are far, far more than the trivial amount that is released from laughing gas.
Okay, so my first question is, Joe, are you telling me that this whipped cream that I buy at the store, I shake it up and this stuff comes out, I can get high if I keep eating enough of that from the can?
Unfortunately, the answer to that is yes, and some people do that.
No.
They will squeeze it out into a large plastic bag and then inhale the nitrous oxide from there, which is actually a very dangerous thing. People have passed out and have suffocated because they put their head in the bag. And also at raves, they sell balloons. Those balloons are not for decoration. Those balloons contain nitrous oxide. And the partygoers inhale it in order to get high, to be euphoric. Now, in very, very large doses, that's a dangerous business because it can have neurological consequences. It interferes with nerve transmission, and people can get feelings of numbness and tingling if they abuse it. Now, in Canada, it is illegal to use nitrous oxide as a recreational product. But of course, they get around that. But it is not illegal to use it to sell it for culinary purposes. So they sell cartridges of nitrous oxide that can be used to make whipped cream. And, restaurants and bakeries do that. But unfortunately, it can be abused. And there are many pictures where, after raves, you see these small cylinders of nitrous oxide that have been thrown away. And those are the ones that were used to inflate those balloons, which were making people high.
So if I have my whipped cream, if I have just a little, I could maybe get a smile or a laugh, just, like my laughing gas portion, but I want to stop at that level.
Right. Okay. I think with the whipped cream, I would worry more about the fat content.
Wow, but if you're laughing, who cares, Joe? If you're laughing while you're eating your whipped cream, who cares about the calories? So I'm sure someone is going to come out with sugar-free whipped cream if it doesn't already exist anyway, so they're going to take that out of the equation too. But the things you learn on this show.
Yeah, that's the laughing gas story and whipped cream.
There you go.
And, there's one aspect of it that isn't quite funny because people do tend to abuse it.
All right, there you go. Dr. Joe Schwarz. Joe, thanks so much.
Thanks, Aaron.